The question is, how do you actually lead people? Do you have to dominate? Do you have to tell them what to do? And the question is, who actually knows about that? And we have someone with us here today who actually knows how to do it. Hello and welcome, Keenan McBride.
Thank you, Niels, for having me. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much for taking the time. You wrote the book Via Se Leonatus, which is available right now. So first, of course, I have to ask, what was your motivation to write the book? Because let's face it, it is very competitive out there when someone wants to get into that topic with a book. What was your motivation to do so?
Well, my first and core motivation, Niels, would be my father. My father, who is a constant presence in my life. We just lost him in November.
Very
But
sorry.
Thank you. And I realize and look back on my life that his words and guidance has been a added structure to my life from the very beginning. And then just my working experience, and dealing with people. And I've
Hmm.
learned to deal with people in different ways. I've taught, I've built curriculum, I've led people in different aspects of their life and working life cycle, if you will. And everybody's looking for that magic bullet of how to deal with people. And so I felt like taking it back to the basics.
Mm. Excellent. And I saw you also connect leadership to cultural appreciation of the art. That is a quite unusual. Most people say, okay, what's the scientific framework? Give me the buzzwords. I will learn the buzzwords, repeat them. I get my promotion. Thank you very much for that. What is your take? Because let's face it, I'm in this industry now for more than 20 years, and I haven't heard of such an approach as of yet, which makes it that interesting. Can you give me more details on that?
Oh, absolutely. Um, I became a lover of art. I've been involved in art in some way, shape, or form since childhood.
Hmm.
I lost connection with it as I grew and began working, but I've found it again. And one thing I've noticed about art is we tend to look at art and we let art drive our feelings in a lot of ways. For example, Claude Monet is a favorite artist of mine.
Hmm.
Okay, and if I look at a Monet piece, that's exactly what it brings me, peace. I look at it and it's tranquility, no matter what the scene is. I look at other artists, and while I may love the work, what it says to me, it may say upheaval or noisy. Van Gogh, for instance, a lot of his pieces are very dramatic in
Hmm.
detail, and where that ties into people is we tend to look at people and we make quick judgments on them based off of our dealing with them immediately. However, if we sit back and we look and say, okay, well, how does this person make me feel? Let me look at this
Hmm.
person like I look at art. Okay. And I can make a better judgment. Now, sometimes that means we have to broaden our perspectives in order to enjoy art. And that brings in things like Plato's allegory of the cave. If you're familiar with that
Yeah.
allegory, if all I'm exposed to is one segment of reality, this is my reality, I've never seen anything else, then of course I'm only going to be able to deal pleasantly with a select group of people that fit that narrow narrative or that narrow scape.
Hmm.
However, if I expose my mindset, I expose myself to other cultures, to other appreciations, to other artistic works, that teaches me how to broaden my perspective. Thus, I see the world differently, and I can
Mm.
then deal with people differently because I have a broadened viewpoint or paradigm of life.
Excellent. What do you now tell people when, of course, because I prepare with this interview and I ask other people about what they think. How do you deal with people who say, look, I'm a City of London banker. What we do is we sell things and we sell stocks. When you tell me, sit down, it's like art, take your time, mate, I just don't have the time. I have to bring the numbers. My sales manager evaluates me based on these numbers. How do you deal with people who work in a high stress environment who simply will tell you, I don't have the time to settle down and focus in this way as you expect me to do?
Well, one thing I would do there is I would call them to, there's a statement in the book that says to lead with dominion and not by domination.
Yes.
And so with high stress situations, one of the key things is for us to always, as leaders, to appear, even if we don't feel like we are, to appear in control of the
Hmm.
situation, because that will actually maximize our team's efforts And especially if what we're driving for is higher performance and we're driving for more impactful performance, the more people see that their leader is controlled, that their leader is steady, then the better off the team will be because they have faith in the
Mm-hmm.
leader. And so if we need to, we've got numbers, we got to get things out. We've got to, okay, well, look at the steady guidance and the steady leadership that we have in our department, in our region, or whatever it is. And the leader can give guidance in that way. Even if it's underneath the water, the leader's feet may be like the swine,
Mm-hmm.
underneath the pond. So really that broadening of perspectives allows me to deal with each person on my team in such a way to where I keep that faith in me as a leader so that we can
Mm.
meet our objectives.
Excellent. So would you say it's possible to state you focus on growing the leader, not necessarily the person?
Yes, you see that, and that's the turnaround part of because all throughout leadership, and you look at many leadership philosophies, a lot of it tells us how to guide a person, how to
Yeah.
support the person, how to
Yeah.
build the person. Well, in this instance, with Vijay Leonardo's philosophy, it's about consistently
Mm-hmm.
molding the leader to the person. And when we mold the leader to the person, I don't know about you, but when I feel like somebody genuinely has my best interest at heart, it makes me want to join with them, you know,
Absolutely.
and to follow their leadership if that's my leader. And
Mm-hmm.
so what this does is it allows me to see people, meet them where they are. And then people, in a lot of cases, will naturally rise to meet you to the level of expectation that you have. But they have to first know that you have that care for them or that concern for them.
Absolutely. You also have the term refinement of mind, which I find highly interesting. How does that work, and how do you think it works, especially in, let's say, senior management and executive practices?
Okay, well, a lot of what refinement of mind has to do with is refining um, that mindset, right? It's easy to allow the world to pass us by because we find something that works and we stuck with it. So the first 5 years of my career, this was the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
The next 5 years, but I get stagnant because this has worked for me and I don't improve. I don't move on. I don't find continuously improve, buzzword of the industry, right? And so constantly looking for ways to learn, always learn. And I think I can probably attribute that to my over 20 years. I've been a learning and development professional, learning development leader. So I know the impact that learning can have on an individual, and it can constantly makes you refine yourself. Now, from a personal side, you expose again, in my experience, the arts, the cult in different cultures and different ways of thinking. All of this helps me to become a deeper person, thus building relationships better. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my relationships are garbage, then my team performance is probably going to be garbage.
Yeah, that's so.
So
Yeah.
leaders at a senior level have to also refine their mindset to stay in tune with what's going on.
Mm. Excellent. So when we now focus on this rather, let's say, quiet strength that leaders build,
Mhm.
some people, when I talk to them about this, they said, look, it looked really interesting, but to me, it feels a bit like I'm becoming passive, like a bit non-existent, and maybe people stop following me when I'm not the very present, very dominant person. So how can I deal with that when people just say, I actually think it makes sense, but it feels wrong to me. It feels like I'm just too passive, too non-existent, and maybe I get bypassed with the promotion because people will say, I just don't see you anywhere. How do you deal with these situations?
There's a quote in the book that speaks to the symbol of the lion that I use quite frequently throughout the book, and it says that the lion does not announce its presence; the world simply feels it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much about the flow of words and constantly having to have something to say, but it's about building our presence in the moment. Little things that build our presence, such as when we do say something, make sure it's something impactful, something that adds to the conversation. We don't want to create groupthink where we're the leader that paints the room. We speak up first, and thus everybody around us will then start to agree with us
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to disagree with the leader. So sometimes it's good to be the room's point of stillness instead of stirring the pot, so to speak.
Mm.
Get your team, and then plus that allows your team to become comfortable with you because they know that you want to hear from them. You see, and then when you speak, you are tying everything together. They know you hear them because you haven't interrupted, you haven't needlessly cut them off, you haven't needlessly interjected, your ideas. Because let's face it, if you're going to do that, then there's no need for a team meeting. This could have been an email, right?
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
directive,
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
but
very, very good point here. When we now talk about these moments, and people probably see potential, so leading through potential, finding potential, often people say, look, potential left, right, and center managers. I mean, you just have to look into corporate America here, or any
Mhm.
corporate world, basically. They say you can have potential left, right, and center. At the end of the day, people just have their biases, and they will most likely fall victim for their bias, especially when they were not professionally trained on unconscious biases. How can you overcome that situation that people say, I see potential, and by coincidence, that is exactly the person you had in mind 5 years ago, which is nothing else than unconscious bias or confirmation bias in this case. So how to lead by potential when bias is such an omnipresent limitation or even threat to the outcome?
Well, one thing about us as people, right? We're wired to pick up on patterns. We have our preferences on things, and we have our morals, our values, or whatever that may be. And thus biases get formed, right? And biases get formed early on in life. However, what I've found is that the more we allow ourselves to see and be exposed to different things, while we may have some deeply held values or biases that are within us, we can then see, okay, well, it's possible other people have their own sets of values and biases within them, but this is why they have them. And once I understand why you think the way that you think on something, it's easier for me to then relate to you versus me attacking you through my biases.
Mm-hmm.
And the you mentioned potential. I look at potential, and a lot of us look at potential as what someone can be, what what they can aspire to. I look at potential as in a different way. Potential is like having a 5,000 pound weight suspended
Mm-hmm.
by a crane. Okay, am I going to walk underneath that weight? I'm probably not because I
Probably not. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because it has the potential to fall. Is when we learn
Yeah.
about potential energy, kinetic energy, things like that.
Yeah.
Being a leader is the same thing. When our team sees us act in certain ways where they build faith in our strength, our presence, they know we have the potential to hold them accountable, to hold others accountable for treating our teams in certain ways. We don't have to necessarily use it all the time. Thus, that saves us that energy. I don't have to come down on an individual, especially that the individual knows I will come down on them if I have to, or either I will speak up if I have to.
Mm.
Potential can actually do a lot of the work for us. A lot of the true power is in that potential.
Mm.
That weight still is 5,000 pounds nonetheless. It just hadn't dropped on me.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an additional question for that. When you now speak about this example, and some leaders say, look, I really struggle with broadening my perspective when people are very, very different from how I am. So some people say, look, I want to get in the meeting room, sit down, give me the facts, thank you, next meeting. And then you have someone who goes into storytelling and tells you everything around that. I just get annoyed by that. So when someone tells you something like that, how can you make people change perspective or broaden perspective when they have to deal with people who are probably the polar opposite of what they are?
Well, that's when we have to make people appreciate that there is benefit in always learning. And that's one of the hardest things that we can get, um, mostly seasoned leaders. Let's just be honest. It's hard to get seasoned leaders to see that sometimes because they feel they have reached the pinnacle
Hmm.
they want
I
to.
know how things run in this industry. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Right. But getting them to understand the five pillars of Visual it just starts with refinement of mind, right? But then you go into elegance and expression, courtesy and charisma, confidence and command, cultural appreciation. All of this has to do with melding that quiet strength. And the more we meld quiet strength, then the more that allows us to watch and observe other people. That helps us by itself to get along with people in a more symbiotic way because I watch how you think. I watch how you react in certain situations. I learn your values. I learn what's important to you. And honestly, knowing that people are respecting people's abilities and rights to think differently actually will help us in that aspect as well. We have company policies for a reason, right? Policies keep us in line
Yeah.
with structural and legal obligations. However, outside of that, those are relational standpoints that we as leaders have to set the stage and be able to maneuver. That's what makes us leaders. Right?
Hmm.
That's why it's not always the thing to pick the most technical person as a leader. Sometimes we want to pick the most relational person and teach them the skills. You see, it's all about relationships.
Yeah, excellent. And when we talk about relationships, how do you deal with people who say, and that is I have to say, quote, word by word quote,
Mhm.
in my industry, we are highly results driven. We are culturally narrow by design. That's a statement from an investment banker who said, we all know that we're not married. We are hardly even colleagues. We have one goal, and that means selling stuff. And that's what we do. We show up, we do the thing, and we go home. So what would your even first approach or your first intervention when someone says by design we are what they call culturally narrow?
Okay. Well, being culturally narrow is one thing. However, I would say being personally narrow is quite another, or professionally narrow is quite another. And part
Okay.
of professionalism is our conduct. And so when we think about confidence and command, that's where that comes in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as a leader, I want to give the executive presence that can make up for words I don't have to speak. Enter rooms with calm assurance, shoulders back, a gaze is steady. We mean business, right? But acknowledge others with a quiet respect, because respect is so key here. Just general respect of others, not dominance of others. If you do that, then that helps you immensely. Allow silence to work in your favor as you get things done because it amplifies your authority as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And having confidence in what you have to do, that's not arrogance. Is just that. It's confidence. So having set goals, objectives that you have to meet, that sometimes that's just business. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, while we can be confident and we can command, we can also be courteous and do so through our presence and quiet strength. And that will get us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Two more questions to wrap this interview up. If someone would now tell you, okay, maybe I'm a leader, I've never heard about appreciating the art as a leadership approach. What is one arts inspired exercise that decision makers can use by next week to improve their judgment or their respect or both, maybe? Any kind of first step you could give them?
One thing I like to do, and I'm actually working on this as part of a seminar series that I want to introduce with this book, is pick out one to two, maybe three very different artists. And I use physical art and painting because it's just what I love. Um, a Monet, pick Van Gogh, pick I don't know. Let's just go with a Da Vinci sketch, right? All
Mm-hmm.
right. So um, and look at those three things. Now there may be three things that are hailed as masterpieces, but they may be very different. But ask yourself, what are the differences in your eyes, in your opinion? That kind of goes back to the Plato's allegory. have we painted ourselves to where all I like is this, and I can't possibly see any beauty in this or any beauty in that. If we have, then we're not looking deep enough because now we need to look at the feeling. We don't have to like and love everything, you see. But what we have to learn to do is to respect something for what it is. You see, once we learn to do that, then we can appreciate it, whether it's something we love or like or not. I can appreciate it for what it is, what it's supposed to be. It's like trying to teach the Einstein a quote attributed to Einstein about trying to teach a fish how to climb a tree and a monkey how to swim,
Hmm.
right? That doesn't mean the fish is stupid, right? The fish is not designed for that. And so we have to do the same with people. We look at people that way. And so that's, in my opinion, an exercise that we can do. Just look at different pieces of art and learn to appreciate it for what it's supposed to be.
Excellent. And of course, one last question when people now say, I think I'd like to have the book, and maybe some people even say, I'd like to get in contact with Keenan directly because I think he might be helpful for our organization. First, of course, where do they find the book? And of course, second, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, the book is on Amazon, so it's on Amazon.com right now, and you can both get the book and get in touch with me on our website is just launched. It's vxculture.com, and so it's try to get in so I can make it very simple. vxculture.com. There you'll find synopsis of you'll find the five pillars. You'll find overviews of the book, how to get the book, and ways to contact me directly. They're right on the homepage.
I think these are the perfect final words. Keenan McBride, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Niels. I appreciate it.